Pete Mackanin, they give him an extension. To break it down a little more is our 97.3 ESPN FM Phillies Insider. Does a great job, daily beat covering the Phils, as well as Sports Talk Philly. That's Frank Klose, kind enough to join us on a Thursday. How you been, Frank?
I'm well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. All right, let's get into this. I'm wondering, is this a situation with the extension of Pete? Is this more of we feel he's built enough equity in with this franchise, or we're just looking for some stability with this young team over the next couple of years?
I'm actually surprised it took so long. I kind of expected this in spring training. It's still kind of a little unsettling in that they're going with essentially one extra year, but they're making him wait until the season is already in, and this is 2 years in a row. So it feels a little odd, feels a little unsettling. It doesn't feel like it's a long-term extension. Essentially, they just did what they've been doing, which is giving him the following year so he's not sitting as a lame duck,
Right.
And then the option for a year beyond that. And it really doesn't have a permanent type feeling for me personally.
So then, again, going back to the original question, and I kind of feel the same way. You know, we've had a couple different baseball guys come on over the last year or two, and a lot of them said, they pointed out, they were pretty blunt, and they said he's not a major league skipper. And then there are a couple that have said, no, he'll be okay. You know, I think it's also, I'm wondering too, when they got rid of Charlie and they had the whole Ryan Sandberg fiasco, I think maybe, and this is just my opinion, I think maybe there were some unrealistic expectations, right? They get rid of Manuel, 53 and 67. Sandberg comes in, 20 and 22, basically 500 baseball. They come back, they only win 73 games the next year. Offseason, they get rid of a Ruben Amaro Jr., and then Sandberg steps down after that horrible start, and then Pete comes in, and they win 71 games last year. I'm wondering if it's more of kind of like what you said, Frank. You know, we'll just kind of keep ripping up the contract. It almost seems as though they're waiting for other options down the road. That's the way that's my perception. That's the way I look at it.
It's funny. I think back to when Terry Francona was a Phillies manager, and now he's gone on to be one of the best in baseball, and most people generally agree that. But even at the time, Bill Giles kind of controversially said, well, he's not the manager for when we get good, essentially. So you got to wonder if there's some of that thought there that they'll get a big time manager when it's time, just like they're going to get a big time offensive player when it's time, quote unquote. But for now, it seems like they're comfortable with him. I don't think that he's doing a bad job. I think he's doing a good job keeping the clubhouse loose and letting players develop, and that's what they need right now. But yeah, it's like I said, still it feels like a little unsettled for the future, but they might be taking that same approach with the offense that they'll swoop in and get the big name when they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good point. Again, a couple minutes with Frank Klose talking some Phils right now. They dropped 10 out of 12. We knew they would struggle. You look at yesterday's game, Cano, Valencia, Chooch got into the fun. 21 runs in 2 games. M's erupt for 11. We knew they were a good, solid hitting baseball team and offense, but listen, you look at the starting rotation, we knew eventually that was going to be one of their Achilles heel, their weaknesses going forward, and the bullpen has just flat out been atrocious. Like, what do you do with this bullpen right now? How do you fix it?
Well, if you remember a week ago, actually you were off, that's right, I was talking to Josh, but a week ago I sort of said that I would just put Joaquin Benoit in the closer's role and just roll with it and just at least try to get some stability. Well, interestingly, yesterday, Benoit was sort of complaining that he is not in any official role in the bullpen, and he feels like the players would perform much better if they all had established roles in the bullpen. So that was an interesting thing I heard yesterday from Benoit. I think right now you don't really know who's coming in when. I thought they had to go grab Jake Thompson, and they sort of threw him out there in the bullpen just out of desperation, more so than the fact that they were trying to use him as a reliever. So, I mean, they couldn't bring Luis Garcia back because he had been just options, and you have to wait 10 days. So they found themselves in a situation where they had to use somebody that they didn't want to use in the bullpen, and it just created probably a little unsettling of a feeling, I think. And Benoit is really onto something that the people in the bullpen don't really know their roles. They don't know what's going on. We sort of think that Neris is the closer, but that's never been said. So maybe what they do need is to just – I think they need to make a change or two. Now, they already sent Jake Thompson down. Luis Garcia is eligible to come back. I don't know if that will be the move. They haven't announced the corresponding move yet. But if they can just sort of get into some sort of routine and make sure that everybody knows what their role is, I think they'll be a lot more successful, because I think they all just seem uneasy right now.
Well, that has to be unsettling, and the bullpen was a perceived strength coming into the season. And you mentioned Benoit. I mean, listen, he comes in, he gets handed the ball in the 7th inning Wednesday. The game basically implodes, right? He faces 7 hitters, retired 1. You had the big 3-run double from Chooch, and then you mentioned Ramos came on, walked in a run. Thompson gave up 3 more in the 8th. I mean, it just. To me, it doesn't matter if you're getting 6 or 7 solid innings from your starting rotation. It's like it's almost a moot point. I mean, it's got to be almost fruitless and disheartening if you can get that going forward from some of these guys, and yet the bullpen can't pick up the load. They can't carry their own weight. To me, that has the makings really of being a disastrous season. I mean, you look at it, and again, I don't do the panic thing, and I know we're a month plus in, but you almost get the sense that, okay, here we go. This is shaping up to be one of those 100-loss seasons.
I don't think they'll be that bad. I still tend to think that they will find their groove at some point. Now, Shamar Gomez, could it have been that he was injured this whole time and not that would explain what happened to him? Now, his injury basically requires rest. Now, he had the off season, but who knows when you're going to get him back? And I think right now, I would like to see the Phillies make a move of some sort, to shake things up a little bit, try to get it to a point where you can settle somebody into roles and just roll with it. Now, I think what was happening with Benoit the other day, I think they really didn't want that game to get away, so they brought him in the 7th, kind of thinking of him as one of the more stable options. But we now know that he did not like the lack of stability, and he didn't feel stable there. So now he could have just been blowing off steam after pitching poorly, but yeah, you got to think that they're gonna catch their groove at some point. I mean, I really didn't think the bullpen was going to be this bad. I thought it would be a strength. You didn't expect Gomez to be that bad, and then once he was out, that kind of put everything into a domino effect. And Neris, first time as the closer, quote unquote, not being called the closer, then he struggles a little bit, and then the question is, well, now what? So whatever they can do to create a sense of stability, I would try to bring somebody in from the outside. They just traded for KCPN. We might see him sooner than later. The only thing that would worry me about him is that he gives up a lot of home runs. So, but they're going to have to make some roster moves in order to shake things up, and you could be seeing some players losing their 40-man roster spots over the next couple of days.
Yeah, it was Gomez to start the season, and then you had the season opening series in Cincinnati. Then it was Benoit until he gave up the blast to Harper last month. Now it seems like it's Neris. You mentioned they might have a new live arm in the bullpen Friday. If that's the case, for that series to kick off against the Nats, I mean, in your estimation, who would it be? I mean, who would that different arm be coming out of the pen Friday?
Well, right now, at least as the roster's set up, Luis Garcia could come right back. Now, he didn't give up any runs when he was up here already, but they still sent him down when they were looking for a fresh arm. So it could be as simple as just Garcia coming right back. But I would like to see them do something else. This is just my personal opinion, and maybe that means that Adam Morgan, who doesn't seem to have any role in this major league team, needs to be designated for assignment and try to be pushed through waivers, or maybe somebody claims him, but you got to open that roster spot. I think Mark Leiter Jr. is going to hang around a while. I think they're going to see what he has to offer. But again, it's kind of hard to see what these players are when you're in the middle of the season. It's a shame that they really couldn't figure this out before the season began. And for all of Gomez's struggles in spring training, I mean, they really had no other option to going into the season other than it kind of what was here. And again, a lot of it goes back to the full 40-man roster.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be time they would decide, are they going to do something bold, like just decide that Nick Pivetta is going to be shaped into a reliever and they just roll with it? I mean, maybe when Aaron Nola comes back, they could do something of that sort. Do they go even more bold and decide to make Vince Velasquez the closer? If you think back to 2007 when when the Phillies had their first playoff appearance, they had to grab Rhett Myers and say, "Listen,
yep.
we're getting destroyed at the end of these games. We need you in the back part of the bullpen," and it ended up working out for them. So, I know they wanted to give Velasquez a good look with his lively arm in the starting rotation, but if he can provide some stability, that would be wonderful. But again, I don't think they wanted to do it on the fly like this if they were going to make a change. But right now, they need some sort of stability, and maybe some of these young starters will be able to do that.
You think about it, Pivetta was supposed to. I mean, right now he's scheduled to pitch Friday, and then Velasquez would actually be next man up against Gonzalez, his second of a 3-game set against Washington. So you're right. I mean, if they're going to do it, you might as well figure it out. Right now,
well, I will say Aaron Nola had a nice rehab start last night, so
they can push him.
If he's going to, right. So if he goes and takes the next time that Pivetta would be scheduled to pitch, then Pivetta could join the bullpen.
Yeah. Where is there a point where you say to yourself, all right, the season's starting to, as we start to close it out, where do you say to yourself, the season's starting to kind of spiral out of control? And look, we knew going in the expectations were relatively low because it is a young team, young infielders, young bats, another different starting rotation, opening day guys, the whole 9 yards, the bullpen with their issues. But you got 3 against Washington, 3 on the road against Texas, 3 against Pittsburgh. Those are no gimme games. They're really not. And then you come back home against Colorado and Cincinnati. Now we're creeping into late May. I mean, to me, this is kind of a telltale month for the Phillies to at least see going forward if they're going to play competitive baseball.
Maybe some of this is exasperated by the fact that they've played the Nationals now, 12 times?
Yes.
They didn't play the Braves 12 times. They didn't play the Mets 12 times. They didn't play the Marlins 12 times. But just the schedule worked out that they have all these games against the Nationals, and then next thing you know, you won't see them for a couple of months.
Right.
So maybe it feels worse. Maybe when they start playing the Braves more often and other teams like that, they'll start to catch the groove a little bit, and it'll feel a lot better. But the schedule exactly hasn't been kind to the Phillies either. So I would keep that in mind too going forward.
Yeah, well, we did talk about that before the season started because they get it on the back end in July and August. But hey, you got to play who's on the schedule. I mean, the bottom line is you're right. I mean, it could be smoke and mirrors, or maybe they're not as bad as they seem to be. But at the end of the day, if the bullpen can't get outs, I don't care who they're going up against. They got to get outs.
That's very, very true. But in some respects, I would just kind of keep it all in perspective. If I'm the Phillies and if I'm Phillies fans, look at each game. What positive came out of it for the long term, and really ask yourself what happened today. How much of it is part of our future? Joaquin Benoit is not part of your future. So you see him blow up for 5 runs like he did the other day or yesterday. That really doesn't have a long-lasting effect on the team. So I know that's really hard to do when you're constantly, it feels like every day you go in the bullpen blows something else up. But really, if you keep the greater picture in perspective, maybe you'll have a better time.
Well, again, we'll see how it plays out. They start Friday with that 3-game set with Washington. I know you got a busy day. I'm sure you're going to go get some quotes and articles up and running in a little bit. But I appreciate a couple of moments as always, Frank. We'll talk next week.
Always good to talk to you.
All right, you got it. Be well. Frank Klose does a great job as our Phillies Insider for 97.3 ESPN.com.